The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Good afternoon and welcome to Chit-Chatting with Jocelyn. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We are going to continue what is now trending, the Windham incident. We are talking about voter discrepancies. We are talking about accu-vote dieballed tally machines. They're the machines that tally the paper votes because in the state of New Hampshire, the law is that you must have paper ballots. We have that. But in some cities and towns, they go through the accu-vote dieballed machines, which are owned by Dominion. Do not be fooled. They are owned by Dominion. So in studio today, I have Ken. I'm not even going to try and say your last name.
Eyring.
Eyring. Okay, Eyring. I got it. And you are a Windham resident.
I am.
And you have some pretty intense concerns about what went on November 3rd. What went on with the machines, what went on with the voting, how on the recount we had 4 Republicans that got an extra 300 votes each. We have a Democrat that lost 99 votes. This is unheard of. 5 or 6, maybe 10 plus 10 minus, but not 1,200 total found and 99 lost. This is not Republican Democrat. This is the integrity of every single person in the state of New Hampshire, their vote and what it means.
Absolutely. Yeah, so let me I'm going to repeat a little bit of what you said.
Oh, please do.
But I want to make sure that I recap everything. And you're right. We had an election on November 3rd. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, the machines spit out the paper tapes. We have them as a public record.
Okay.
And when you look across the results of all 4 machines,
mm-hmm.
you know, there's some anomalies with one of the machines. Now, I want to preface everything that I say today. I have never said that we have voter fraud. I have never said that the machines are manipulated. I've never said that we had any kind of issues with the recount. What I have said is that the election day results were, as you said, we had 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats running for office. Mm-hmm. There were 4 seats open for Windham, and the 4th place Republican won by only 24 votes over the 1st place Democrat.
Okay.
That's a margin of 0.005%. And so the Democrat challenged and asked for a recount, which is her right, and I support that because that is a foundation of our country, right? Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that whoever wins the election are the ones who are actually serving in office. And so when the recount occurred 9 days later, I was there, so I can speak firsthand knowledge as to how that process was. And I believe that they did a really good job. There were things that they should have done that would have been cross-checks and checks and balances mm-hmm. that they didn't do. And I actually made some suggestions at the beginning of the process that they dismissed. For instance, they told us that they were going to take the ballots and sort them into straight Republican, mm-hmm. straight Democrat, mixed votes, and blank ballots. Okay. And they were going to take the blank ballots and they were going to put them right back in the box and not count them.
Okay.
And I said, why aren't you going to do that? Why aren't you going to count these ballots? You need to know that Windham sent up 10,006 ballots. That's what they're claiming.
Correct.
How do you know that we have that many ballots in the room? You can't do that if you put them in the box.
Right.
That's exactly right.
So you haven't verified the actual amount of votes the first time and the actual amount of votes in the recount.
Ballots.
Ballots, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And so we had a 10-minute conversation. There was an attorney for the Republicans there, an attorney for the Democrats, and there were a few other people that got involved with this. So the chairman, the Windham Committee GOP chairman was on board with me. Mm-hmm. And we were challenging them. We said, we really want to be able to verify that all the ballots made it here. Mm-hmm. So they didn't do that. Other than that, I think, the process went well. They had 4 tables. They had cameras on the ballots. They had cameras on the guy who was tallying all the individual votes. It was really transparent. And whenever it got to a point where there was a question as to did they double count when they were counting out 25 ballots, they would stop, they'd take the pile again, they'd start over. At the end of the process, nobody had any concerns.
Okay, good.
It was only until after they took all the tallies from the 4 different tables, put them in the spreadsheet. While they did the spreadsheet, people were encouraged or welcome to stand literally right behind them. I was surprised, actually. I would have thought that Bill Gardner and Dave Scanlon would have, felt a little claustrophobic with people right behind them. But, I could look right at the screen. I could see what they're typing in. Everybody's taking pictures. And you could see they're like, this doesn't look right. And they went back and they had someone else come over, sit down and look at the numbers and recheck. And then they had someone else come over and recheck. And they're like, this doesn't make sense.
So what were they rechecking?
They were rechecking and rechecking because they wanted to make sure that all the numbers from all the tables were entered into the spreadsheet properly and then it was tallying properly because, as you pointed out, the numbers were way off.
Yeah.
Every Republican got between 297 and 303 more votes, an average of 300 votes. And the Republican, the leading Democrat, and only the leading Democrat, lost votes. Every other Democrat picked up votes from 18 to 28 votes.
Okay.
So the margin of 0.005% from the day of the election to the day of the recount grew from 24 votes to 420 votes and a 9.6%. That's the largest unexplained discrepancy in the history of the state. And what's really troubling is that the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and the Governor are not interested, have not been interested in investigating what the problem is.
So 3 of, you could call the most important people in the state,
Yeah, senior government.
senior government, don't want to investigate that these 4 machines were working correctly?
Well, like I said,
Tallying correctly?
Well-
what would,
Well-
or they just don't care about any part of it? It is what it is. See you later.
well, our Windham selectmen unanimously made a resolution. They sent a letter from our town attorney to the Secretary of State and the AG's office asking for an investigation because we don't know.
Right.
We don't know if there was something messed up with the ballots going through the machines.
Yep.
They literally could just be defective machines at this point. They're old machines. They're optical scanners. The scanners may not be scanning properly. They do a test before every election, and it might be that the machines weren't stressed enough to only run through 100 ballots. They work properly, but
Right.
they handled thousands of ballots. So it could be that they just malfunctioned. It could be, there could be other reasons. It could be that the machines, didn't work. They were programmed to not work. It could be that, and again, I'm not saying that this took place. It could be that there was voter
But we
fraud.
need to know.
We need to know.
We need to know. We've
The
got
re-
4 machines. 3, if I remember, had very similar percentages of like
Correct.
59%.
Yep.
But the second machine, the B machine, wasn't even close percentage-wise to.
Yeah, if you look at the tally tapes
Yeah.
for president, for instance, and if you looked at the percentages for Trump, for machines 1, 3, and 4, he garnered about 57% of the vote, give or take a few tenths of a percent. And Biden was up around 40-ish, 40%, 41%
Okay.
for those 3 machines.
But
For machine number 2, yeah, but for machine number 2, and that's the machine that more ballots were cast on by a few hundred than the second most machine. It almost looked like the votes were flipped. It looks like because Donald Trump got 42% and Biden got 55.8%. So they're both really close, within about 1% of where the other candidates were where each other were on the other machines. So I'm not saying that that's a mistake or the machine malfunction. We really don't know, and we need to know.
correct. And these machines are going to be used in the next couple of weeks to the towns that haven't pushed out the local elections. These machines are going to be used again. Yours, whatever other towns have these machines are going to be used again. We need to have an answer of whether there is a problem, is there a discrepancy, what is going on, because we've got more elections going on in the month of March.
Right, and that's really the key. You know, Windham is representative of 85% of the polling places in the state. So
Yep.
if we are having a problem with our machines, we need to know that, because it's going to impact 85% of the votes.
Correct. Because there's other cities, other towns that have the same machines,
Right.
and we don't not know that the same thing didn't happen there. There's nothing we can do about it right now, but we can't go back and change anything,
Right.
but we can say, these machines, they get locked up, they all need to get investigated, they all need to get checked, and oh, by the way, we're going to hand count everything. That's just the way it's going to be for our local elections right now till this is straightened out.
Right. So I just want to be clear how much of a nonpartisan issue this is.
Oh, totally not.
Absolutely everyone in my town wants to know what happened. The Board of Selectmen wrote 2 letters to the AG's office via our legal counsel asking for an investigation. And the second one was because they never responded to the
first one. I was just going to say, yeah.
The Ballot Law Commission, after hearing an appeal of the recount, they were disturbed enough to request the AG do an investigation. Our town moderators have requested an investigation, our town clerk. The chairman of the Windham GOP committee has requested an investigation. The chairman of the Windham Democrat committee has requested an investigation. Yeah. It goes on and on with the number of people. Windham residents have requested an investigation. And it's all fallen on deaf ears. And you said you had Bob Guida on last
Correct.
week with David Strang. And
Yep.
I'm sure Bob explained to you that he was a part of some conversations where the AG's office was represented and the Secretary of State as well. And they outright said they have no interest in looking at our
Correct.
machines or looking at the ballots.
Correct. They couldn't find any, if I remember correctly, criminal intent.
Doesn't matter.
Right. But that's what they're saying.
But it doesn't matter. And they were hiding behind RSA 7:6-C, saying that they needed to, that fraud actually had to be made as an accusation for them to do that.
But you can't, because we don't know.
Well,
and that's what we
exactly
want to find
right.
out.
But I can tell you that I spoke with a very high-ranking judicial official in the state. I'd like to leave his name out of it, but impeccable. And he looked at the law and he said that the Attorney General has the authority
Correct.
right now to go ahead and initiate an investigation, and he chose not to.
Well, sorry not to interrupt, but doesn't this also show, to me, that we, the people, are being ignored again? That they do work for us. Our taxes do pay their salaries. And in the end, if we have a problem with the validity of this election and what went on, it is their job to investigate.
It's their obligation, right?
So that's pretty sickening, just saying, shut up and sit down. There, kind of like the Star Wars, there's nothing here.
There's nothing to see here.
There's no discrepancies here. I'm sorry, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, in fact, I agree. It feels like they're trying to play a Jedi mind trick on us.
Yes, exactly. So, all right. So we've got Senator Bob Guida on this. We've got you. We've got several people, town selectmen, town clerks, the head of the Democratic GOP, Republican GOP. We've got Dr. David Strang. We have a number of people with very serious concerns to the validity of this election and what is going on. And we have top government, top state officials that are turning a blind eye. In fact, straight out saying we're not going to, and quoting law that doesn't support what they're saying.
Right. Now, in other states, there were irregularities across the nation on November 3rd. And other states, people were clamoring and asking for investigations, and some states have done that. There's one thing that's undisputable about Windham. We have 2 election results, and they're so far off one of them is wrong
Correct.
by a lot.
Is it true that Attorney Sidney Powell has referred
Yep.
to Windham?
Yep.
She's a pretty high-ranking, very important, prominent attorney to throw out into court that there's a problem, potential problem.
I actually
in Windham.
heard General Flynn as well referred to our
General
case in
Flynn
Windham.
has also referred to that.
Yeah,
So that kind of tells you that this is not, some little fleeting fear of people. This is something legitimate. And for two people like that to speak about it, to me, says volumes.
Well, it does. It's the type of issue because there's such a large discrepancy, and we're talking percentage-wise, okay? There's such a large discrepancy that it's concerning, and it's resonated with people not only in our state but across the country. And less than 2 weeks ago, I actually watched a newscast from Australia referencing the elections in Windham, New Hampshire.
What?
Yes.
Really? In Australia? That one I hadn't heard.
I'll send you the link.
I'd love to have that link.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. But people say that as America goes, the world goes, and there's a lot of concern about the validity of our elections nationwide.
Yes. So if it could happen here in Windham, it could happen anywhere.
It could.
And citizens, voters, taxpayers need to be looking closely, both Democrat and Republican, at the integrity. Because if we don't have that, then our votes don't count.
Right. The people who serve need to be the ones that we've elected. It's the foundation of our constitutional republic. What I find troubling, though, is that, God bless him, Senator Guida actually pushed through an amendment to a bill, SB 43, and the amendment wound up replacing the entire text of the original bill in order to force the Attorney General and the AG's office to investigate this. Now,
but wait a minute. So you're using the word, and I'm not picking on you, but force. That raises some red flags to me, that we're having to force officials to do their job, what they're obligated to do.
Well, that's my interpretation of it, because my interpretation, and I'm basing this on a very high-ranking judicial official who knows his stuff, I assure you, who said the Attorney General already had the authority but refused to use that authority. So if you have to write a law that specifically says that the Windham election is going to be audited, when you had that authority before, I would define that as being forced to do something that you chose not to do.
I agree. Wow. This is just mind-blowing. So, I would say to anybody out there, please, right now, today, tomorrow, Monday, go to your town clerk. Ask them if they're using the accu-vote Diebold machines.
Yep.
If they are, then tell them that you do not want them used in the upcoming elections, local elections.
I'll tell you what they should do. They should ask for copies of the paper tapes. Okay? They're public documents. It's part of the tallying process at the end of the night. They take those paper tapes, they put them into spreadsheets, and if they have multiple machines, and that's how they tally up the total vote for the polling location.
Yeah.
And send them to me. I believe my email address is being displayed on the monitor.
I love it. So
and if that's the case,
this is your call to action, people.
It's one of them.
One of them.
I have
so
more.
So let me just recount. Go to your town clerk, ask them if they're using those machines. If they are, ask for the paper tapes, take a picture, you get a copy. It depends on your town.
Well, they should give you, they won't give you the actual physical document, but they can actually give you photocopies or scans.
Okay.
And what they did with our paper tapes is they put them 4 side by side, and then they scanned them into legal, portrait-sized documents, 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
And then what I did is I took them and I combined them all together, so I have a really long image.
Okay.
And I've used that in some of the documents that I've posted to Granite Rock, explaining the stories.
So people can get those, email them to you, which is on the screen, so that you can add this to your documentation. Now, you write for Granite Rock.
I do.
you've written several articles.
Yes, if people go onto Granite Rock now, they'll see a couple of stories. The ones that are trending are actually pretty disturbing stories.
Okay.
On Monday, the Attorney General sent an email to our town clerk and our town council saying that they would like the town clerk to prepare our machines to be picked up on Thursday, which is today, and to call up a specific person in the AG's office and arrange a time. So I was made aware of that on Tuesday afternoon, and I wrote a post on the Granite Rock on Wednesday to alert people that the AG's office was going to, quote, take possession, unquote, of our machines, which I find to be very disturbing.
Yeah. Is that a proper chain of custody?
It's the AG and the Secretary of State. Now, both of them, as far as I'm concerned, have shown not only a disinterest, but the Secretary of State has a conflict of interest. That he oversaw the recount.
Correct.
Okay? Now, the recount was off by 9.6% from the election day votes. We don't know that his recount was accurate or not. We have not validated that. Why is the same person who was part of this recount going to oversee the audit and take possession of our machines? He's already got our ballots and has not returned them. So
why has he not returned them?
They have not returned them.
Interesting.
So we would like to get possession of our ballots back. We would like to run them through our machines that we bought. The ballots are municipal documents. The machines are legally owned and paid for by Windham under the control of our town clerk. And we have the right and authority to test our machines at any given point in time as defined by the selectmen. These are all part of the ballot law ordinances and part of our RSAs. And the selectmen can easily say, we want you to test the validity of our machines by taking November's ballots and running them through those machines following this process.
Yep. Which is what should happen. Again, you bring up a point that these machines, these ballots, this process is 100% Windham's.
Right.
And just because you're the AG or the Secretary of State does not mean, people would assume, as I would, oh, okay, they want it. Well, I wouldn't, knowing what I know now, but if I was a regular person, would say, oh, that makes sense that they're going to come, but it doesn't. And you point that fact out, and I think that's very important for people to understand that just because it's the Secretary of State, just because it's the Attorney General, does not give them the right to supersede or take over already set, I don't know what the word is, but statutes or laws and whatever, in your own town. And oh, by the way, you do own those machines because you, the taxpayers, paid for them. Right,
right. So we have the authority, and I've been told this by multiple attorneys, okay? So I'm assuming that I'm being told accurate information. And if that's the case, we should be testing our own machines. We shouldn't be turning over all of the documentation and equipment
all the evidence,
to someone who has a conflict of interest. I'm not accusing them of about to perform anything nefarious. That's
but it's
not
a conflict
my intent.
Of interest.
Right. We want to know what took place. We want to know what happened, and it's got to be by people who were not involved with the process. I've written a document. It's on the Granite Rock. It's a proposal for the Windham incident audit.
Okay.
And what that does is it states anyone with a conflict of interest, and I've spoken to my town clerk about this. She has a conflict of interest. She's like, I don't want to be involved with it. I should be arm's length away.
Right.
I've spoken with some of our selectmen. 3 of our 5 were on the floor. And the ones that I've spoken to said, okay, yeah, I understand. I shouldn't be a part of that. Our moderators shouldn't be a part of that. And the people who were actually brought in to help with the election should be a part of that. But Bill Gardner oversaw this process over here in the recount. Him and his team shouldn't be a part of that either, not directly. Now, I'm not excluding anybody, right? The AG has the authority to be there. Bill Gardner, as the Secretary of State, has the authority to be there and should be there. They should make sure that we're not missing any steps that they believe should be taken into account.
But they should be doing that
but
from a distance.
But they should be arm's length away.
Correct.
There are machines. It's our problem. We want to have our process, this whole process, be thorough and complete so we leave no stone unturned. We want to make sure that we take the ballots, all of the ballots, and initially they wanted to take a subset of the ballots and put them through the machines.
No, all of them.
We're done. We don't know what happened, but hey, it's fine.
For machine,
That's not
10,000.
fine. It's not fine. This is the foundation of our country. This is our town. We want to make sure that our vote counts.
So what can people do? Because I know you have another call to action for everybody to do.
I do.
So please tell our audience what you need them to do.
Thank you. You have to go to thegranicrock.com. There is a call to action document. I believe it's still trending on the top, in the top 5 on thegranicrock.com. Please read that. Go to the bottom of that post. There are probably 7 or 8 email addresses on there. 2 of them are to the Windham town government officials. One goes to all Board of Selectmen. The other goes to the town clerk. Please be respectful. These people are on our side. They believe that we should have the authority to do our own audit because we don't have faith and confidence in the people at the state level at this point because they've ignored this issue for 2 months. There's no reason to believe that they're going to give a 100% effort at this point to really find out what happened. Below that are senior state level officials, the governor, the Secretary of State, and the AG's office, as well as the Senate President and the Speaker of the House. Please write to every one of them. Make your voice heard. I know that we are blowing them up in a sense that they're getting a lot of emails and we're making an impact. This is a national story, and as I said before, I'm hearing it as well from other countries. They're watching this. It's important. It really is. This is the foundation of our republic.
It is, and we have to stand up as citizens of the state of New Hampshire. You were born here, you're a citizen. We must follow the Constitution. We must follow our obligation to ensure that our voting is integrity is intact and we have a voice, because right now we don't.
And if anybody wants to help, my email address is up on the screen. Write me an email, and in the subject line write Windham voting machines, and I will reply to you. I will put you on my email list. We need all the help we can get.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, everybody. This is, as we know, the Windham incident is trending. It affects all of us. It doesn't matter your party. It doesn't matter anything except that as a voter, as a taxpayer, as a citizen of the state of New Hampshire, we must ensure that our votes always count and that the integrity is always held in the highest esteem. Join us again. Thank you for joining me with Chit Chatting with Jocelyn.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.